Hi everyone, welcome to the course, and today we will be covering all about positioning. What is positioning? Whenever we position an element from left and right or inside our document, that is called positioning. Okay, that means we are aligning our elements to some specific sites. So let's see how position works. Okay. So let's have our snippet, boilerplate, and in here what I'm going to do is I am going to take a div and going to name it as static. Okay, and let's add some style. I'm going to give you the simplest example in which you will able to understand this topic. This topic is not as big as, but it is the important one. You should know it when you will take any element out of the flow of the document. Okay, so in this style I'm going to give it a class. Okay, so I'm going to give it a static name. So let's have a dot static and let's have a class over here as static. So why I'm saying static is, see, I need to give one background, obviously, because it's a div. So let's have some light color. Okay, see, fine, and we can have border even 1 pixel, solid black. Let's add some height. Let's let it be 100 pixel and width should also be 100 pixel. Now what is happening over here is a div is there. Okay, and to that I have given some properties which we already know. Okay, so just open this particular page with the browser. Okay, so you can see that this particular element is static element. Now one thing more is, use your universal selector and give margin as 0 pixel. Okay, so this will remove the extra spacing. This is the static container. Now on the static container, left, top, right, bottom and Z index doesn't work. That means these particular properties are not applicable on position static. Okay, so if you will give left as 10 pixel, see that even if I'll refresh it again, there is nothing. Okay, this property is not working. Now if I put right 10 pixel, this will also not work. Okay, that's why I told you that these properties left, right, top, bottom is not applicable on your static. Okay, on the position element. Now let's remove. So can you give it a margin? Let's see. So give it a margin of 10 pixel, because anyway you want to move your element, right? You have to move your container. Now see, when you have given 10 pixel margin, now you can move your element from 10 pixel and 10 pixel. Now this static position of the container is by default. Even if you don't specify it, still it is going to be static. Now see, I have not given the position static, but if I'll write position static, so still it is going to be same, nothing is going to vary, because by default any container takes the position static. Okay, so let it be. Now let's come to relative. What does relative means? Whenever we put a relative property to a container, how it behaves. Now let's see. What I am going to do is, inside the static one only, I am going to put class relative. Now you know, if I am giving a class name relative, that does not mean that position is relative. Okay, it's just I am naming the container so that you will get to know that, yeah, this, what is this container? Relative. Now to relative, what I'm going to do is I want to have the same border height width to all. Okay, so for that I will select div. Whenever I want to have the same property, I will put the container, I will select the element and I'll put all the properties all together. Now see, there is a container of relative and to that there is border, but now let's add some background to this relative. Now copy this class name and put it over here, and now you can add a background property, whatever you want to give color. Obviously I'm gonna change this color to something this. Okay, now see, this is our relative container. Now let me do one thing. I've given it a margin 0. I've not specified margin to any container. Okay, now let me give it position. Now there is position called relative. Position relative. Okay, now relative means it is relative. This particular container is relative to its position. Okay, that means this container is going to move relatively to its by default position. So by default this container is going to be static. Exactly what I told you, that this container is by default static. Okay, even if I am specifying it or not. So similarly any container is going to be static by default. Now see why it is static. If I'll remove the static position, it is at the same position where static is there. Okay, now let me show one more thing to you. If I'm copying this, okay, and I'm pasting it over here. Now see, you have to keep this in mind that it is relative from this position, not this. This container, the above container will take its exact position. Now the relative one will take its position. Okay, so go back and put this where it was. Okay, so it is one container inside another container is there. Okay, so now put position relative. Okay, now as you have seen that when I have given this my top left, it was not working. Now if I am giving this as 0, left as 10 pixel, okay, see, this relative container is moving by 10 pixel, okay, from the left because I have given it left. Now if I am going to put from top, I'm going to give it 20 pixel. Now see, it is moving 20 pixel. Now how it is moving? The question to you is how it is moving. It is moving relative to the browser or relative to its actual position. So it is actually moving relative to its actual position. Okay, as I already told you that if I am not specifying any of the property, this is its static position, this is its by default position. But if I am giving position relative, that means I am telling this container that you have to move relatively to its position. By how much? By left 10 pixel and top 20 pixel, as you can see. So it's moving 20 pixel from top and left 10 pixel relatively to its position. I hope you have understood this thing. Okay, if you will inspect it and you will click on this, you will see that this is the relative container and this is the static container. Okay, so it's moving to its actual position. Now if you have understood the relative, now let's move to the absolute position quickly. See, again inside the relative container I am going to put a div, and this div is going to have a class of absolute, spelling absolute. Okay, now see, the spelling should not be wrong Here you can give wrong spellings, but don't give it over here, okay? Absolute. Now this is very important for you to understand how absolute works, because absolute is absolute. It's little difficult for students to understand, but if you'll understand, it is easiest one, okay? Now see, this container will have all the property of this, but I want to have a background color. Just give it any color, okay, and I'm not giving it anything. Now see, this absolute is also going to have a static by default, but give it a position absolute. Now for applying absolute and for absolute to work, there are two conditions which you need to keep in mind. One thing is that absolute should always have a parent element which is set to property relative, okay? What I'm saying is, you have to remember that a container, you have given a position absolute should have one parent whose position is set to relative. Then absolute will move relative to the parent container, okay? So that means here this parent container is already set to relative. Now see, the absolute is sitting on the top of the relative. Now if you want this to move, specify from left, I'm going to move it 20 pixel, and similarly from top I want it to be 20 pixel. Now it will move 20 pixel from left and 20 pixel from top, but how it is going to move? Relative to its parent container. That means 20 pixel it will take from the parent container top, and left also 20 pixel to the parent container. That means it is moving relative to its parent container whose position is set to relative. I hope you are understanding this, okay? So see, if I'll comment this properties, see, it is here, but if you give this property, it is going to move it, okay? Now let's do one thing. I want to show you one thing. Now see, if I am doing it 40 pixel, it is moving 20 pixel from top. But when I have given 20 pixel, why it was not shifting 20? Because relative container is already set to position 20 pixel. That's why it is already occupying 20 pixels from the top. So it will not move again 20 pixels. So if I'll increase the top value, like here 40, then it will move 20 pixel below. I hope you are getting it, okay? So this was your absolute. Now if you don't have any relative position, that means the parent is not set to relative. I have commented that particular thing, okay? Now it is not relative to that thing, and it is not having any parent. Now what do I mean by parent is, see, let's comment this out. Okay, so this is sitting over here. Now comment this. See, it is back to its default position, that is static. Now when I will give absolute position, which is already there, okay, if I will not specify absolute, it is static by default. But if I will set it to position absolute, what will happen is I need to move it from the top and left. Now it will move from the browser, it will move relative to the browser, okay? So I hope you have got this thing, that whenever you don't have any parent to the absolute container, it is going to move relative to its browser, okay? Otherwise, if you are having a container which is set to relative property, then it will move to that relative position property. I hope you have understood this topic carefully, as this one was the important topic. So do not forget to practice it. Let's wrap up this session over here, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much, everyone.